Your objective for Lesson 21 is I will solve two-step word problems involving multiplying single-digit factors and multiples of 10. So we're going to be working with word problems that are two steps, and you're going to be multiplying single-digit numbers by multiples of 10, which would be like 3 times 60. So it's going to be really important that you double-check your work because these are two-step problems and you don't want to skip a step. Okay, each day Andrea does 25 squats to warm up gymnastics practice and 15 squats to cool down after practice. How many squats does she do in all when she practices Monday through Friday? So, this problem tells us that she does 25 squats to warm up for gymnastics practice, and then she also does 15 to cool down. And she does this Monday through Friday. So, how many squats does she do in all? Well, first of all, we're going to have to figure out how many does she do on each day before we can figure out how many she does in all. So let's draw a picture for Monday through Friday showing how many squats she does to warm up and how many squats she does to cool down. So if you want to make it like a tape diagram, but whenever you're making it like a tape diagram, I want you to label Monday through Friday. So you could just like use the letter M for Monday, the letter T for Tuesday, the letter W for Wednesday. You could use TH for Thursday, and you could use F for Friday. So make sure you're labeling your tape diagram what day it is, and then how many squats she is doing each day. And that's going to help us figure out how many she does in all whenever she practices Monday through Friday. So go ahead and push pause and draw your tape diagram and make sure you label your tape diagram. So right here, we know that she has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you did not put 25 plus 15 in each section of your tape diagram, that's fine. If you had your tape diagram looking like this where you put 40 in each one, that's fine because that tells me that you know that 25 plus 15 is 40. So to figure out how much she did in all, we had to take all of these 40s and we had to add them together. And we know that repeated addition is just like multiplication. So this is the same thing as saying 40 times 5 or 5 times 40. And we're multiplying by multiples of 10. So this is the same thing as saying we have 5 times 4 tens. And we know that 5 times 4 tens would give us 20 tens. And so that means that 20 tens is 200. So Andrea does 200 squats whenever she practices. Okay, our next problem is Benny gets $5 a week for allowance. After saving his money for 20 weeks, how much more does Benny need to buy a bike that costs $108? So go back, reread that problem. Think about what are the steps that we need to take to solve because we're trying to figure out how much more money does he need to get in order to buy a bike that costs $108. So read back over it, figure out what steps we need to take, and then we will work through it together and draw our pictures, write our equations, and then write our answer in a sentence. So push pause to read back over this and think through what we're going to do. Picture that I have is a tape diagram, and it has 20 different sections on it because there are 20 weeks that he's saving money for, and each section you can see right here would be $5. And I have a question mark at the end or at the bottom because I don't know how much money he made in all for those 20 weeks. So the equation I was looking for was 20 times 5. And if you already know what 20 times 5 is and you put the answer right here next to it, that's fine. But another way that we could have worked it out was using the associative property by taking the 20 and putting it into 10 and 2, and then putting parentheses around our 2 and 5, which would make it now 10 times 10, and that is another way that it would give us 100. So 100 tells us what? Does this solve the problem? Are we finished yet? Because what does this 100 mean? When I look back up here, we were trying to figure out how much Benny was making in 20 weeks. So this 100 tells me that in 20 weeks he made $100. So he has $100 after saving. The question says, how much more does Benny need to buy a bike that costs $108? So he wants a bike that costs $108, and all he has is $100. So what equation can we write down and solve to figure out how much more money Benny needs? And I want you to notice these words right here, how much more. Very similar to how many more. And we always said that whenever we saw those three words that we would think of subtraction. So we're going to be writing down a subtraction equation, 108 minus 100. And I think that that is something that you could do mentally in your head without having to work it out. So solve that equation to see how much more money Benny needs to buy the bike. And I want you to write the answer to this problem in a sentence on your board and push play whenever you're ready to check it. So Benny needs $8 more. Okay, moving on to the next problem. Genevieve makes 43 bracelets. She gives 13 bracelets away as gifts and sells the rest for $4. How much money does Genevieve make in all? I want you to read back through this problem and think about the steps that we need to take to solve it, and push play whenever you think you know what we need to do, and then we'll work through it together. So I know that she has 43 bracelets total, and I know that she gives 13 bracelets away, and the bracelets that she has left, she's going to sell for $4 each. So in order for me to figure out how much money she's making, I need to know how many bracelets she's selling for $4 each. So in order to figure that out, I'm going to have to take 43 and subtract 13 from it. And to draw for this, this is what my tape diagram is going to look like. So I do want you to go ahead and I want you to draw this tape diagram on your board. Anytime we have subtraction, we know the total. Okay, we know that she has 43 bracelets, so we put this right up here at the top, or if you put it right at the bottom, that's fine as well. I know that she is giving away 13. So in this part right here, it's going to tell me how many she has left. Because if I have 13 and how many bracelets she has left, it should equal 43. And so when I take 43 minus 13, that tells me that she has 30 bracelets left over. So now that I know how many bracelets she has left over, and I know that she sells the bracelets for $4 each, what do we need to do to solve the rest of this equation? You don't have to draw another tape diagram or another drawing for this, because I know that you would have to draw 30 groups, and that is quite a bit to draw. But I do want to know what equation can we solve to find out how much money does she make in all. She's got 30 bracelets left, and each bracelet costs $4. What equation can we use to solve this? I want you to write that on your board and push play whenever you're ready to check it. So I'm looking for 30 times 4. Another way we can solve 30 times 4 is breaking apart the 30 into 10 and 3. So this would give me 10 times 3 times 4. So I want you to write 10 times 3 times 4 on your board, and I want you to put parentheses around two numbers that would make this problem friendlier to solve. So thinking back to the associative property. Then once you put your parentheses around the numbers that you want to do first, I want you to go ahead and solve it so we can figure out what the answer to 30 times 4 is. Push play whenever you're ready. So parentheses needed to be around the 3 and the 4, so we were multiplying 10 times 12, and we know that 10 twelves is 120. So the question was, how much money does Genevieve make in all? We know from right here that she's making $120. So go ahead and answer this question on your board in a complete sentence. Push play whenever you're ready to check it. So we know that Genevieve makes $120 in all. I want you to go ahead and take out your problem set so we can get started on that. Okay, it says that use the RDW process to solve each problem. Use a letter to represent the unknown. So we're going to be using a letter to represent what we're trying to find in the problems that we're working on today on the problem set. These are going to involve more than one step, so let's make sure we read closely. So number 1 says there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. Use a tape diagram to find the total number of seconds in 5 minutes and 45 seconds. Okay, this problem would have been simpler to solve if it just said find the total number of seconds in 5 minutes, but it says 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So we're going to have to take this in 2 different steps so we can find the total number of seconds. So if I know that there are 60 seconds in 1 minute, the first thing that we can do is find out how many seconds are in 5 minutes, and then we can move on to find the rest of the answer for this problem. So you're going to have to use a tape diagram to first figure out how many seconds do you have in 5 minutes. And I do want you to label your tape diagram when you're working on it. And I also want you to write the equation that went with that drawing. So whenever you're ready to check your answer, you may push play. The tape diagram I was looking for would have 5 sections because it stands for 5 minutes. And there's going to be 60 in each section because each minute has 60 seconds. The equation I was looking for was 60 times 5. I forgot to remind you to use a letter, but in this equation we could have used S because we were trying to find the total number of seconds. And so when we have 60 times 5, we have that it is equal to 300. So 5 minutes has 300 seconds in it. So now that we know how many seconds are in 5 minutes, and the question is asking how many seconds are in 5 minutes and 45 seconds, what is our next step to solve this problem in all? I've got to take my seconds from my 5 minutes and I have to add it to my 45 seconds to see how many seconds there are in all. So now I'm going to add to my tape diagram another section that is 45 seconds. So I want you to add that to your tape diagram. And then you're going to write the next equation that we're going to solve to find the answer to this problem. So on your problem set, what is the next equation that we need to solve to figure out how many seconds there are in 5 minutes and 45 seconds? Play whenever you're ready to check it. I was looking for 300 plus 45 equals S, because we're still looking for seconds, and S in this case is 345. So now we need to go and we need to answer our equation or answer our problem in a complete sentence because we were trying to find how many seconds were in 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So go ahead and write your answer in a sentence and push play when you're ready. So there are 345 seconds and 5 minutes and 45 seconds. Moving on to number 2. This time we need to remember that we are using letters to represent the unknown. And since the majority of these problems are going to be 2 steps, make sure we have 2 equations whenever we're working these problems out. So this problem says Lupe saves $30 each month for 4 months. Does he or does she have enough money to buy the art supplies below? Explain why or why not. So I see right here that the art supplies that she wants to buy are $142. So we're trying to figure out if she has enough money to buy these art supplies whenever she saves $30 each month for 4 months. So our first step is going to have to be to figure out how much money she has in all after she saved for 4 months. So I want you to use a tape diagram again, and I want you to show me with the tape diagram how much money she is saving in 4 months. And I also want you to write an equation that gives us the answer to that. And we need to use a letter for the unknown. And since we're trying to find out how much money she is making, let's go ahead and use the letter M whenever we're writing our equation that goes with our tape diagram. And then you need to tell me what is M equal to. So go ahead and draw your tape diagram, write your equation with the letter M, and tell me what M is equal to. Push play whenever you're ready to check it. So right here on the tape diagram, we've got altogether there are 4 months, because that's how long she was working, and each month she made $30. So the equation that we were looking for was 4 times 30 equals M, because that will tell us how much money she made. Whatever strategy you want to use to solve 4 times 30 would have been fine. So M was equal to $120. So now we have to go and answer the question, does she have enough money to buy the art supplies below? So we're going to have to answer that first. And then it also says explain why or why not. So if she has $120 and the art supplies are $142, does she have enough money? And then tell me why or why not. Make sure you're using complete sentences whenever you're writing this on your problem set. And when you're ready to check it, you can push play. So she does not have enough to buy the art supplies because she only has $120, and that is not enough. As long as your answer was similar to mine, then you are good to go. Okay, moving on to number 3. Brad receives 5 cents for each can or bottle he recycles. How many cents does Brad earn if he recycles 48 cans and 32 bottles? If you need to reread this, you can do that, but I want you to go ahead and I want you to think about what steps are we going to have to take to solve this problem. Just pause to think about this. So we know that he receives 5 cents for every can and bottle that he recycles. And I know that he's recycling 48 cans and 32 bottles. So we're trying to see how many cents is he earning in all. So first step that we need to take is we need to take 48 and 32 and add them together to see how many cans and bottles he has all together, so we can see how much money he's going to make. So if we're adding these two together and we're using a tape diagram, all we're going to do is have 2 sections on the tape diagram. One section is going to be 48 cans, the other one's going to be 32 bottles, and all together when I add that, it's going to be equal to 80. So I want you to draw this on your problem set. And it would be a good idea to go ahead and write the equation that we were solving to get 80 underneath it as well. If you need to push pause to do this, go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we have figured out that altogether he had 80 cans and bottles that he recycled. So for each one of those, he got 5 cents. So what equation can we use now to figure out how many cents he gets in all for all the cans and bottles that he's recycling? So you're going to write that equation on your problem set, and you're going to solve it. Remember, we're trying to use a letter for the unknown. So since we're trying to find out how many cents Brad is earning, let's use the letter C in our equation. So write your equation and make sure you're using the letter C. So the equation that we're looking for was 80 times 5 equals C. And in this equation, C is equal to 400. So 400 is going to tell me how many cents Brad earned for recycling the cans and bottles. So now on your problem set, I want you to answer the question in a complete sentence and push play whenever you're ready. So your sentence needed to say that Brad earns 400 cents for recycling the cans and bottles. Okay, we're going to move on to number 4. A box of 10 markers weighs 105 grams. If the empty box weighs 15 grams, how much does each marker weigh? Okay, I want you to push pause and I want you to think about what we're going to have to do to solve this equation. What do we need to do first, and then what do we need to do in our second step to figure out how much each marker weighs? Whenever you think you know what we need to do, I want you to push play. Okay, so what I know from this problem is that there's a box that has markers in it, and that weighs 105 grams. The box by itself weighs 15 grams, so I don't know how much the markers weigh, but the question's asking me how much does each marker weigh. But in order to figure that out, I have to know how much do the markers weigh by themselves if they weren't in a box. So I know that the markers in the box weigh 105, and I know that the box weighs 15. So if I were to subtract these two numbers, it would tell me how much the markers weigh altogether. And remember, whenever we're drawing a tape diagram and we're working with subtraction, the whole tape diagram would be the total. So our total right now is 105 grams. And I know that the empty box weighs 15 grams, so I'm trying to figure out what is going to go here in this section. So all I have to do is take 105 and subtract 15 from that, and it's going to equal G, because it's going to tell me how many grams the markers weigh. So I want you to make sure that you have this tape diagram drawn on your problem set, and you have this equation written on your problem set. And I want you to solve this equation and tell me what does G equal. Push play whenever you're ready. So G is equal to 90, and that tells me that 10 markers weigh 90 grams. So make sure you have all of this written on your problem set so we can move on to the next step. If you need to push pause, you can do that. Okay, so if I have 10 markers and they weigh 90 grams, I'm trying to figure out how much does each marker weigh. So now I'm going to be taking 90 divided by 10, because 90 was our total and 10 was how many groups we had, and it's still going to equal G because we're still trying to find how many grams we have. So I want you to go ahead and write this equation down, and I want you to solve for G and tell me how much is G. So when you take 90 divided by 10, that's the same thing as saying what can you multiply 10 by to get 90. And I know that I can multiply it by 9 So G is equal to 9, and that tells me right there that each marker is going to weigh 9 grams. So I want you to write the answer to this problem in a complete sentence and push play when you're ready to check it. So each marker weighs 9 grams is the sentence I was looking for. Okay, moving on to the last two problems. Mr. Perez buys 3 sets of cards. Each set comes with 18 striped cards and 12 polka dot cards. He uses 49 cards, so how many cards does he have left? Okay, I want you to push pause and think about what you need to do here. Okay, we've got to figure out how many cards come in 3 sets, because then we can take away 49 from that, and it will tell me how many cards he has left. So I want you to use a tape diagram or use some type of drawing to help you figure out how many cards he has in all, because he has 3 sets, and write your equations. Since we're trying to find out how many cards we have here, whenever you write your equations, I want you to use the letter C, and then I want you to answer the question for how many cards he has left in a complete sentence. Whenever you're ready to check your answer, you can push play. Okay, I was looking for a tape diagram. Um, there are 3 sections because there are 3 sets of cards. I put 18 plus 12 in each section because there were 18 striped cards and 12 polka dot cards. If you solved for 18 and 12, that is fine as well, because we figured out that 18 and 12 would equal 30. So if you put 30 here, and 30 here, that's fine as well. The equation would have been 18 plus 12 equals C, and C is equal to 30. So that tells me how many cards are in each set. Now I've got to figure out how many cards there are in all. And I know that he has 3 sets of cards. So I'm going to be solving 30 times 3, or 3 times 30, however you wrote it. And that gave me 90. So that told me that he had 90 cards in all. And I know that he used 49 of those cards. So if I have 90 cards and I'm using 49, that means I'm going to take 49 away from 90. And then he is left with 41 cards. So the sentence to answer the question should have said he has 41 cards left. Make sure you change anything you need to change for this if you made a mistake before you move on to number 6. Number 6, Ezra earns $9 an hour working at a bookstore. She works for 7 hours each day on Mondays and Wednesdays. So how much does Ezra earn each week? Okay, I want you to push pause, and I want you to go ahead and just do all of this on your own. Make sure you've got your drawing, your equation, and you're answering this in a complete sentence. And whenever you're ready to check it, you can push play. So for my drawing, I just made a tape diagram. One section was for Monday and one section was for Wednesday. And I have 9 times 7 is 63 in both of them, because I knew that she worked for 7 hours on Monday and 7 hours on Wednesday, and she made $9 for every hour. So I had to multiply those together. If you didn't write the equation in there, that's fine. If you put it somewhere else, that's fine as well. But on your drawing, I did want it labeled Monday and Wednesday. So if you didn't have it labeled for Monday and Wednesday, I want you to do that. And the reason I'm having you do that is because if there was someone else that was looking at your drawing, they could plainly see what you were talking about whenever it's labeled that clearly. So that tells me that now I have to take 63 and 63 and add them together. And I put that it was equal to M, because we were trying to find out how much money she was earning. So when I have 63 and 63 adding together, it gives me 126. So the sentence needed to say that Ezra earns $126 each week. For your exit slip, make sure you use the RDW process just like we did on the problem set, and use a letter to represent the unknown in the problem. Whenever you're finished, make sure you bring that to me.